Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we are fresh off of the back of the Day of Reckoning pay-per-view. Anthony Joshua fought Otto Wallen. Deontay Wilder turned up kind of against Joseph Parker. Not the best performance. We'll get into it. There was a lot of lessons to be learned from this pay-per-view, in my opinion. Lesson number one is make the fucking mega fight while you get the chance, you absolute morons. Genuinely, I'm sick of this happening now. Like, we are never getting this fight, and now I don't even give a shit about it. And I've been kind of talking about this, about KSI and Jake Paul and so many mega fights over the years that haven't happened, and it's always the same. One guy loses before the fight can be made because they keep trying to, we need another fight, we need another one, and eventually one of them loses and the stock falls and no one gives a shit anymore. And this is exactly what always fucking happens. I told you so. The lesson is make it when you can. Another lesson, and this goes for boxing, UFC, all of it, is inactivity kills careers and it kills your prime. The amount of fighters I've seen take ages out of the ring or the cage, from McGregor to Fury to all of these guys, they get fat, they get lazy, they think they're great, they take their eye off the ball, and the young hungry ones who stay active always come and catch those motherfuckers up. They don't have to be young even. I mean, fucking hell, Joseph Parker is younger, and he just stayed active while Deontay Wilder sat on the fucking couch. Anthony Joshua, best performance in years. Why? Because he stayed active. I know it's hard. I know fighting all the time is hard, but if you want to actually win shit and look good, it's essential. Another lesson is press conferences mean fuck all. Otto Wallen was confident. Big Baby was confident. In that ring, you didn't see no confidence when the fucking shots were flying. It was fuck this. Where's the smiles now, lads? Where's the one-liners? Doesn't matter. Deontay Wilder talked all that shit. Looked like a timid little kitten in there at times. Press conferences mean nothing. The best press conference guy in the history of the sport is John Fury. Say no more. Now, a couple of months ago, Tyson Fury's legacy took an absolute battering, as did his chin, when a beginner boxer in Francis Ngannou dropped him in front of the world. He was humiliated. He was embarrassed that an 0-0 boxer would put a beating on him and actually win on one of the judges' scorecards, and it took him to a split decision. The questions were asked then, is Tyson Fury as good as what we thought he was? And my answer then was, no, he isn't. Now, the lack of big names on his resume has always been a point of discussion. But two of the biggest were Deontay Wilder and Otto Wallen. Otto Wallen bloodied him, and other referees may have chose to stop that fight. I mean, they outboxed Wallen, but it was a challenge. Then you've got Deontay Wilder, who in the last fight with Fury dropped him twice. Had Fury questioning himself. Now, Fury overcome the challenge, but it was a fucking hell of a challenge. And yet, both of these men were no challenge to the guys they were in there with. Now, I think you can reasonably say that Deontay Wilder did not look his normal self in that fight through inactivity. Lost the eye of the tiger, clearly. But Otto Wallen looked like Otto Wallen does. And ultimately, when your legacy is built off of wins against these two and one or two others, and they're getting destroyed out here, it's not a great look for the Fury legacy. And the Fury legacy is really looking worse by the day, if we're being really honest here. Tyson Fury said, any man who steps foot in there with Deontay Wilder is getting wrecked. I'm the only one who can do this. Bullshit. And you can sit there and say, well, Wilder's not in his prime anymore, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I don't think he is in his prime, but you can't say it hasn't affected Fury's legacy, because it has. This is what his legacy has been built on. And when you avoid the Usyks, you avoid the AJs. This is what we looked at to find out how good you are. Not a good day for Tyson Fury. And the irony of one of AJ's best performances in years was that it would come with the old trainer of Tyson Fury, Ben Davidson. And Ben Davidson was the one who sort of nursed Fury back to health when he got all fat and was miserable. And he did a great job with the psychology of Tyson Fury. Ben showed then he is willing, as a trainer, to give his whole entire life to making a fighter the best he can be again. And without Ben, we don't know if Fury would have ever have come back, to be honest with you. And the funny thing was, is Big John Fury absolutely castrated Ben, saying he's nowhere near good enough, shouldn't be anywhere near my boy. All of the same shit he's saying about the current trainer, ironically. And yet Ben Davidson goes in there with the enemy of the Furies in AJ and pulls up career best performance arguably out of him. Like, this is a tricky southpaw who's tall, lanky, awkward, and AJ was just whacking into him and he didn't want to know about it. AJ in this fight showed mental confidence that, lovely, that we haven't seen in a while, and he was punching through him. He wasn't punching on the edge, which was what was kind of happening in his previous two fights. That's what a trainer can do to you, who makes you fully believe in how good you are. And we've seen on the run up to this, power shots being drilled. Go back to the fucking bread and butter that made you great. Steps in, right hand, doesn't quite connect, throws the left, completely discombobulated Wallen there for a second. That's what we want to see from AJ. Nothing too fancy. Do the basics brilliantly, because you are one of the greatest athletes ever produced by GB. And I have to say, I think all of the training he did for Alexander Usyk, who was a great southpaw, made Otto Wallen far less of a challenge than what he would have been had he never have had that time with Usyk. So it's great that he's grown from those defeats. Wallen just timid on the outside the whole time. He wasn't this way against Fury, and that's because what's in front of him is different. I'm not saying Fury, isn't a good boxer. Obviously, he's a great boxer. But a punch from AJ and a punch from Fury are not the same thing. And you can tell by the way he behaved. Fury took over that fight, but there was times where he showed very little fear against Fury and got right stuck into him. He never did that against AJ, because what was coming back was fucking terrifying. And this was the money shot. Boom! Just a fucking power straight right, the left hook, and you see he turns right into it, and he sends Wallen to the fucking shops. That was so quick from AJ, man. A man that big should not be able to move that fast. Bang! And look at the punch placement. Look at that, his whole body turning into it. Fucking beautiful. Fuck off! He did not want to know. And obviously when Wallen got back to the corner after he managed to survive the round, his trainer was like, bro, your fucking nose is smashed to bits. This is over. Let's get the hell out of here. And the reason that was even more impressive was off the back of a shocking performance from Deontay Wilder. What I loved about this performance is AJ's had some okay performances since his defeats, but they weren't the imposing character that we became familiar with. In this fight, he became the perfect balance between being quite defensively responsible and boxing quite cleverly, like he's been trying to lately, but adding in the spite, the nastiness, the bully of taking that centre, and every time you get within range, I'm going to fucking hurt you. And that's where I think Ben could be the added ingredient, and I don't think you should go back to the American trainer he had. I think you should stick with Ben, because AJ's problems at this point aren't really technical. They're mental. And to have a trainer who is a good mental trainer could be the last piece of the puzzle for us to get the best out of AJ. And I'll be honest, if that Anthony Joshua fights Tyson Fury, who fought in Ngannou, who everyone I know who has any link of, Tyson Fury's camp, including Tom Aspinall, who is familiar, says he took that training camp seriously. People like to act like, it was just a bad Tyson Fury and he didn't take Ngannou seriously. He did. We know that. That Anthony Joshua would smash the last Tyson Fury to bits. What I will say for AJ on a personal level is it was great to see him, the classy champion that he's been, get a bit more of what he deserves in the ring, because it's been hard for him lately. The Usyk fights weren't good for him mentally. He's been on that rebuilding phase, and even though he's been winning, he's not been winning great. Even in that last fight, he was all busted up. It wasn't a pretty win. This was clean. He didn't get touched, dominated, and he did it on a big stage, on a big night, and he handled the pressure like a true champion that he is, and he just looks in the best place we've seen him in a long time. And as much as I still think Usyk is a bad matchup for him, AJ like that looks like he can be anyone else in the world, and even still be a threat to Usyk. Because for me with Usyk, it was always he wouldn't pull the trigger. He wouldn't go for it. And if he's like that and he goes for it, he might have a different result. I wouldn't bet on it, but anything seems possible when he's this good. Wilder, on the other hand, looked the complete opposite. Looked scared, looked timid, didn't want to trade. I mean, you're Deontay Wilder. All you've got is trading. Like, I know he's not as bad a boxer generally as what people, have made out in the past, but he's not a good boxer. Francis Ngannou, in his first ever boxing match, looks like he had the fundamentals down better than Deontay Wilder. His positioning, his footwork, there's so many issues. But the power was what he always had. But you can only implement power when you've got the confidence to deliver it, and that has always been there until now. He made it so easy for Joseph Parker, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Parker. Parker did everything he had to do to the best of his ability, even though his ability isn't what I would class as one of the best heavyweights in the world in terms of like top 5. But Parker had enough in his skill set with his quicker feet, quicker hands, to just stay busy and win those rounds quite comfortably. He did it against the guy who was barely throwing back what he usually does. Even when you watch the highlights, there's not loads of highlights of Parker doing great stuff, but he was doing enough because there was minimal coming back at him. It's like having a Ferrari and driving it in first gear. What the fuck are we doing here? The only thing we have Wilder in the heavyweight division for is to throw bombs. Where are they? Good shot from Parker, and there we finally see a bit of the highlights of Parker's work. And he knew when to go. And I think one thing I will say about Parker is technically he knew sort of his opportunities and where they were and when they were. and he fought a very smart fight. But in a heavyweight division full of super athletes, he's not really like that. So again, you've let a guy beat the shit out of you who isn't really on your level as an athlete because mentally you became soft. All this ayahuasca pursuit of happiness stuff, I'm all for it in life generally. But if you're a boxer who previously had stated you wanted to kill people in the ring, well, that's going to take the wind right out of his sails. He's put more energy into fucking faffing on with the beads on his fucking and the sequins on his shorts than he has his game plan. So yeah, Parker was good, but like I think a lot of the heavyweights would have beaten Wilder that night. And Anthony Joshua, if they'd made the fight, would have starched him in cold blood. Right? It would have been bad. It would have been one of the worst possible matchups for Wilder possible. AJ was so sharp in that fight, he would have killed Wilder. And if Wilder doesn't find a way to get that eye of the tiger back, he should retire immediately. Because a man with that mentality has no business being in there with some of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division. So Wilder said a few things since the fight. He's blamed inactivity, even though he said he wouldn't make excuses. This guy's like the Clarissa Shields of the male boxing community. Like, there's always excuses, right? He says that none of the punches Joseph Parker were throwing were actually bothering him. Okay. Why were you not willing to take them to give one then? Because that's what you used to do. And then he says that he needs to find his killer instinct back. Well, at 38 years old and fighting once every 2 fucking years or whatever it is, that ain't happening. Unless he wants to go out on a stretcher, which if he fights a proper puncher will happen, he probably should just retire now, in my opinion. But there is an irony that this might have been caused by Wilder all on his own. Because if you remember correctly, the coach that threw the towel in for him against Tyson Fury in the second fight was fired, and he hired a new coach, a coach he'd actually beaten before in a fight. Do you want to see what that fight looked like? It might surprise you. This is Malik Scott versus Deontay Wilder, and if you look at Malik Scott, very timid, very tentative, bouncing around on the outside. Does he look like anyone we know? Not willing to trade, not willing to throw. It's literally like he got beat off Deontay Wilder, took over as coach and went, I'm going to get my revenge one way or another. I'm going to train you how to fight like shit like I did, and then you're going to get sparked out. Like, is this guy operating for the other side or something? So yeah, he needs to find a new coach as well if he wants to get the eye of the tiger back, because a guy who has that fighting style is not the one who should be giving you advice, pal. And while you're at it, do some calf raises, because I seen more meat on me Christmas dinner than was on them legs, bro. A grown man, a heavyweight, should not be coming in with legs like that. If we do see Wilder again, now that he's lost that fight, I do think a fight with Francis Ngannou or Andy Ruiz, if they can manage to get that pig to actually sign a contract to fight. He's another one who sat there and vegetated, waiting for big offers when he's done fuck all in years. These people piss me off, because I'm like, imagine having the talent and the ability to earn all that money and then just doing nothing with it, sitting in a gym. No one gives a shit what you're doing in the gym, pal. You've got to earn some money while you can. Heavyweight boxers, some of them just aren't blessed with brains, in my opinion, and they spend all this time out and they ruin what they have. And with Tyson Fury's last performance, with Deontay Wilder's last performance, we're seeing the evidence of why active fighters can outperform a guy who's more talented than them, arguably, just because they care more. And it's that old-fashioned saying of hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But when you combine the two, as AJ did, well, then you've got fucking dynamite. It was a good event overall. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I like the Daniel Dubois performance. There was plenty of good fights. Play a matchmaker. I want to know some of the fights in the comments that you want to see next. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel, like the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.